to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend.
Welcome to episode 438 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, March 14th, 2024 in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergun, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northern Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. As always, thank you for your reviews. If you would like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, in terms of Life and Ladder, I am not testing positive for COVID, but because of my asthma, I am still not doing fabulous. Doing better today because I actually remembered to take my prednisone. I forgot yesterday, and I had to cast, and I was like, God, was casting just making me deteriorate this quickly just from having to talk more? No, it's because I in my dosing went 6 tabs, 0 tabs, which is not how that's supposed to work.
No.
It's supposed to go 6 for like 5 days, then 4 for 3 days, then 2 for 2 days. I don't have enough to do a full.
Can we find a way to blame Lorinda for this somehow? 'Cause I feel like this is I'm not sure if this is their fault, but I'm pretty sure this is somehow their fault.
Well, okay, so kind of a little bit. Not exactly related to that, but so Raven's stream, I guess Raven is the one to blame first. Raven's internet just died during the Theorycrafting.
Oh.
Generally, we have Raven running the stream, so he gets a little bump in pay in exchange for being the one to just manage all that. So he's kind of like, he gets breaks from using his voice, but is on the full 8 hours running the stream. Well, a few hours in, it just, his internet took a dump, and we didn't really know why. Everything was working except Twitch. His ping on Twitch was just absurd. So, yeah, we had to shut it down, and Lorinda was going to try and take over, but they were a little bit kind of fumbling with figuring it out, and I was just like, I don't want to do this, but I should do this. And I did it last time. The very first time we did the theory casting, we were split up into 2 groups of 6-hour shifts, which was not a good idea, but that's how we did it. It was the first time. And so Subtle and Raven were managing the stream for part of it, and then Lorinda and I for the other part. And so Raven did it for them, and I did it for us. So I still had like some vague semblance of stuff set up for it. I didn't have all the fancy assets to do like, and we're going to go to cams while we're getting into the next game. Like, didn't have any of those scenes or anything. So it was just like, we're talking, you see the client, good enough.
It was great to watch. I watched some of it before we started playing in the theory crafting, and like it was entertaining. It was fine with the visuals. Yeah.
Sottle would have taken over, but he was out to dinner at the time. So
yeah, well, he's entitled to eat.
Do. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's what I hadn't considered when I dove in to taking over that responsibility is that when I'm the one whose client is doing the stream, I can't play. I can't just be like stealth playing my own games on the side.
That's why they pay you more for that.
I truly I deserve, an extra bit for being deprived of, several hours of playing with the new stuff. It really was rough. I got so many fewer games in because of that. So I did a lot more bouncing around than I might have otherwise done.
Not featuring Garona though.
No. Although I do have an idea. Okay, so
no.
you may be right. It might actually function.
Oh my gosh.
if you can use bounce around to like multiply your giants with Sonya, we'll get into it. So,
I just ate Edel, please. Like, come on. Like, I don't want to get nauseous this early in the podcast. Like,
well, I am curious for it because I'm the one who said it. So
yeah, well, so I got to see a bunch of stuff on the casting side, but you two were playing. So how did you feel about it?
I mean, as usual, it was simultaneously a long time to be on stream and absolutely not enough time to play everything that we wanted to play, especially because we started to be on brand. We started with Reno Priest.
I mean to be on brand, and also because like I really wanted to play Reno Priest. Like it's not like a bit. Like I really wanted to play that deck to start with. So.
And you're the one actually controlling the mouse, and it's Priest. Yes. I'm not going to complain. So we played 2 games of Reno Priest, and won both of them. It was against Meaty and Rekvam, so we were definitely happy with that. It also took 40 minutes.
Well, the reason it took 40 minutes is because we immediately queued into a Reno Priest mirror against Meaty. I don't know how it happens. Like, I would think that, like, the one time, like, Theorycrafting is the one place where I am not going to queue into a Control Priest mirror, because that's the meme on my stream, is that whenever I play Control Priest, I find a mirror, even if I'm the only one playing it, I somehow find mirrors. And, like, not only was it a mirror, but it was, like, the first game that we played on stream, we queue in and immediately queue into Meaty, and he's playing Control.
I mean, Meaty played that deck, I feel like, most of the time.
Well, yeah, it was probably 5 games.
The funny thing is, we did not find Zarimi. We did not find Raza, I don't think. We won anyway. We just put a lot of pressure on the board, so that he had to use his Zarimi to try to get some pressure and then Reno us. And that meant, it's once per game, so then he couldn't do it again. And yeah, we were able to somehow close it out. It was definitely entertaining. I definitely think that there is promise in that deck. We also played some faster priest decks, of course. We played some Overheal. I think that deck, when it doesn't have the 10 cards restriction, will be better. And I definitely have thoughts about that. We'll get some into Decksplanations. I just realized today, Wandmaker, there are 5 1-cost spells, and 2 of them are Funnel Cake and Flash Heal, and the rest of them are just fine. Like, Deafen is just fine in a meta that's not used to silence. It's like the only silence.
Yeah.
But since we don't have Shard.
It's more of a challenge deck building for Theorycrafting than usual, because, I mean, it's always more of a challenge right before rotation, because the official deck builder isn't set up for the current standard year until the actual rotation happens. So it's harder to remember, like, what's in, what's out. And normally there's a few different sites that have deck builders that are varying degrees of good. And right now it's only Hearthstone Top Decks, which only became filtering for that like on Monday, I think.
They also, Out of Cards has it now too. I don't know when that started, but yeah, I was having trouble with the deck builders, and so I just didn't see Wandmaker. Yeah. But also we didn't really have room for things like that in the Theorycrafting. I'm not sure that, like, there's Hedonus OTK, which we'll talk about. I'm not sure how great that is. I feel like there's a more tempo, and then Hedonus is there as a plan B Overheal that might be good. And then there's just like multiple types of Dragon Priest. We played a just tempo Dragon Priest, just Clay Matriarchs, lots of dragons, stats on the board. Zarimi wins you because your stats on the board attack twice. That worked great. Edel was also telling us that she saw some just turbo giants Zarimi, which has only enough dragons to activate Zarimi, and then you just play Playhouse Giants because you drew your whole deck with Clergy, and then you hit them in the face with that. We did not have a chance to try that one.
Yeah. And I mean, like, there were a bunch of decks where it was like 9 cards and then a load-bearing Zilliax, because like there were a bunch of decks where, like, I don't know, throw a Zilliax in. I didn't even, like, when I was deck building, I didn't even figure out like what the Zilliax was going to be until I was entering them in the client. Like, oh yeah, I need to figure this out because it says 0 out of 2 and it's not going to let me play unless I actually like build the Zilliax. The cool thing about the Zilliax, by the way, you probably wouldn't have seen this on the Theorycrafting streams if you were watching it. Like, when you go to build it, it has 2 tabs. One of them is just the 8 modules, but then it's got another tab where it saves all of your Zilliaxes that you've built. So you don't have to like remember what you want to do. You can kind of like, if you have a couple of go-to Zilliaxes, and it saves the art that you put with them, right? So you can go in and then you can pick the Zilliax you've already built and then just put that in your deck. So you don't have to go through the whole, I need to build a Zilliax thing every time. You can just go into the tab and pick a previous Zilliax.
A lot of the time, it's going to be perfect module plus whatever makes sense for this list.
Yeah, for the most part.
Because it's the only way you get rush. So
The
Yeah.
rush is huge. I had this mech paladin, which actually I think, like a mech hand buff paladin, which I think may not be terrible, actually. I actually think paladin could have some good stuff going on. The idea is that you can magnetize on to get, we don't have Garden's Grace anymore, but you can hand buff like little spark bots or prosthetic hand, which is a card that you may not have remembered existed, but it's a 3/1 magnetize. And you can sort of get big bursts out of nowhere. You have Shrimpskavate, you have Taram. And I thought, a brilliant thing for the Zilliax, because I hadn't thought about what Zilliax would be until we were about to play it, of course. So I'm like, what about the Stealth Reborn? And I totally forgot it has elusive, so you can't target it with Shrimpskavate.
oh no.
You're like, we have lethal. Oh, no, we don't.
We still won that game
Yes.
because we stuck something else, and then we Taram'd it, and then we put Shrimpskavate on that. But then we lost to being overwhelmed by hunters, which was a little bit of a theme of the entire Theorycraft, was being overwhelmed by hunters. When we tried to play the hunter, we didn't really quite realize that you should use your RC Rampage, which is the card that summons a bunch of little hounds and buffs for ones that don't fit. You should use that wisely because it really synergizes with a lot of the deck. We just kind of slammed it because it seemed fine on a particular turn, and that was not the play. But overall, the location for Hunter, we'll talk more about that, but the location just seems like really, really good. So
We also played the world's worst handlock, which I must have been just like completely off the radar when I built this handlock. I don't know what I was doing. I had like 4 excavate cards for reasons, and not even like the good ones. Like I had like the Death Rattle Demon with like Nemzi and all the summon things plus Smokestack. Like, why I'm gonna pass up Kobold and Burrow Buster and put in Smokestack, I could not tell you because Past Steve was doing something that was not advised. That deck did not go well. And we had Molten Giants, but we didn't run the fatigue package, so we had no way to actually hit ourselves. We didn't have the Spellstone to heal up. Like, I don't know what I was doing when most of the decks I was fairly okay with, like why I did what I did. And then we started playing the handlock. I'm like, I don't know what I was doing when I built this deck, but it wasn't good at all. I mean, but we got to play Nemzi a bunch. She yells roll for initiative when you attack with her, which is delightful.
Yeah, I was a little remiss in my deck building duties this time around because combination of it's a pain until the actual builders are like functional with the rotation, and Final Fantasy VII. So been a little split focus, and of course the kiddo. So I did a lot of like just kind of spinning things up once I had access to the super account, because obviously then it's just like building normally and a whole lot easier. So yeah, didn't get like the massive full client range of decks that I sometimes do.
Well, I was watching the theory casting for like an hour or two before we went on, and I really appreciated when you were on that you kept like speculating about how you could build the decks that people are playing, and I'm like taking notes. Like the whole second half of the stream has the advantage of they saw parts of the first half of the stream and have a sense of what the developing theory cast. There's always like a theory casting meta by the end, especially when people are tired at the very end. You start to see people on the same decks. And so we already had a bit of a sense of that. And that's also, I got a lot of input from people in the Discord, which was fun. I built more than I have in the past, which was also fun. And then after you were done casting and you came on in chat, were occasionally helping us out with deck building choices, which was also definitely appreciated. And chat live during the theory casting was helping us out. So that's really one of the things that's most fun about it. And I think there's plenty of decks where it maybe didn't work out super well on theory casting, but there's got to be something there. There's a lot of packages that are a little harder to build this time around, I think.
Yeah, and and the 10 card thing also kind of gets in the way. Like, I'm sure there will probably be like a Sludge Warlock with the demon package that makes sense, but not with all 10 Whizbang cards. Like,
Yeah, just Doomguard.
yeah, there's probably like a Turbo Draw Warrior that only wants like a couple like safety goggles and maybe a couple of other things and call it a day. Right? Like, there's going to be decks that you just can't build in theory crafting. And that's why whenever we talk about this, I make sure to say, and I guess I'm going to do that now, that you have to be careful about what you take away from watching the theory crafting, because that meta is the decks are kind of held back a little bit by the 10 card restriction, and B, people are, with some exceptions, playing for fun and to try things out. So there are things that are going to look a lot stronger than they would. Like, Elemental Scar Shaman was viable in theory crafting for Badlands, and I have never seen Scar played on ladder ever, right? But that was like a viable deck that multiple people were playing because it was a thing that you could get away with in theory crafting. So you do want to be a little bit careful about what you take away. That said, there are definitely some decks that look like Theory Crafting Nathria Imp Warlock, which was a deck that did transfer immediately to ladder, and Hunter feels like it's probably one of those. But again, you'll see when we actually get the real decks that aren't losing much, like Sludge Warlock and Odin Warrior. Like, is Hunter going to be able to get through all the armor of an Odin Warrior, or is that going to be something that was able to do what it did because it was theory crafting and you didn't have to worry about that?
Yeah, I'm wondering how long it's going to take for people to take up, say, Plague DK again. I hope that it just gets murdered by other DKs or something new, because there's a lot of Highlander decks that seem really promising, and would love to get a chance to do those without being like just messed up by plagues. In particular, I feel like Bran is a whole lot more interesting to me now that Astalor is gone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It was just so powerful of a win condition to the point of being not interesting.
Yeah.
Like, and now I get to do this interesting sort of hybrid package of, I've got Excavates, because those cards are good. If you've got Bran going, then you get multiple cards out of your ETC. You can get Kobold Miners back from Geppetto, so that gives you even more Excavates. If you activate Boom with Bran, then you get 4 large mechs back. So like, there's just all kinds of things that are really cool and interesting to do with Bran now, more than just, I'm going to hit you for 28 damage a few times until you're dead.
Well, we had a year and a half where we had a whole bunch of deck building challenges, and the answers were always Denathrius and Astalor.
Mm-hmm.
So that, whenever the answers were just Denathrius and Astalor, then those deck building challenges weren't all that interesting. Now that you have to do something, you have to actually win the game without like a bunch of battle cries that can just go face, then that's a little bit more interesting, just from a deck building perspective, and also just from a gameplay perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you see an Astalor and you're going to die in 2 turns, it's not particularly fun. But like, when they play the Bran, the game's not over. That's a lot more interesting. When you have like a rest of the game condition, that doesn't mean that you've already lost. It's just going to take you a while to get there.
Another thing I want to note is that the changes to runes for DK are going to dramatically shake things up. Not just because you can hit certain things now. Like, if you're using Headless Horseman to discover an undead, and you can hit Soul Stealer because it's not triple rune anymore, things like Gnome Muncher and Asphyxiate being removed from the Blood Rune pool means that Hematurge is all the more likely to give you an extra Corpse Explosion, or an extra Soul Stealer, or these other things, because a lot of stuff that they made runeless just makes that pool smaller for all of the now one rune, meet condition, discover a card of that rune type things.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is when you're going to build a Rainbow DK, you may want to check to make sure you actually have all 3 runes in, because we built a Rainbow DK and realized after we played, I forget what the 3/3 is that gets Rush, Reborn, or Lifesteal based on each rune that you have in your deck, and then it didn't get Reborn, and we realized that we didn't have a Frost rune because we had changed the deck.
If you're gonna miss one, Reborn is the one that you miss, especially in a hand buff. But
it's like Acolyte of Death doesn't have a rune anymore, and we're like, oh right, now that's not Rainbow anymore. I actually went back and looked at the deck because I was pulling the deck codes today, and it still had all 3 runes in the deck builder. So that didn't help. That didn't help me my confusion, but do be aware when you're building after the patch goes live that the rune change, or I guess now even, right, because some of those card changes are live in core. Like, just check your runes before you assume that you're a Rainbow deck, or if at least, well, we cut CNE, right? If we had CNE, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Most people are not going to cut CNE, so this is never an issue that's going to come up with the Rainbow
We didn't need it. We
Seamstress.
were killing people too fast. We just wanted to kill people faster.
Then it's a hand buff deck. That's what it is.
Also, I want it noted, I went face a lot yesterday.
he did.
I want credit for that. I was getting crap in chat while I was in the process of hitting face for not hitting face. I just want that noted for the record. I can and do hit face. I just choose not to when I have an alternative. I just want that noted for the record.
We spectated looking for some Raza Priest gameplay, and we show up and you're playing Hunter. So.
You were just a little bit too late.
I was so upset. Like, we had been playing Dragon Priest for an hour. And that was the first game on Hunter. And if you'd showed up like 5 minutes earlier, you would have seen Dragon Priest and Raza. I don't know about Raza. You would see dragons. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, now they spectate us. Now that we're playing the stupid Hunter deck and losing hard. We did hold our own in that game, but we were not playing well.
we played the beginning poorly, I think. Then we did play a little better once we started being spectated, but it was too late.
Yes.
It was not going to happen.
I want to note or touch on one last thing before we get into like news and card superlatives. The Whizbang deck. So a lot of people were playing Whizbang, and there are definitely some that are rough, right? The mage one, to some extent, the druid one, those are kind of, they're very random, so it's tough to say. The warlock one, oh my goodness. I was so confused. I had thought that these were like things that got added to core for warlock. I didn't realize that it was a Whizbang deck for a while.
Is that the evil deck?
No, evil is warrior, which that one's also very RNG
that's
discovery.
very confusing. Like, because we were playing against that, and chat was like, "Are the lackeys back in standard now?" Like, no, it's a Whizbang deck.
Right? Yeah. Warrior is this deck is evil, so it's all the lackeys or farm and stuff. Warlock is your deck is 20 cards, and the goal is to basically get rid of your deck as quickly as possible. And it has Niru Fireblade. It has Chef Nomi. You've got like all the things that burn off the bottom of your deck. It's got Thanatim. Someone got like turn 4 or 5 Thanatimed. It was absurd. We just we blinked and we missed it, and we're like, I'm sorry, how is the deck gone? I think because it didn't register that we were coming in the middle, so we didn't see the Whizbang animation. We didn't know it was a Whizbang deck, which means it's only 20 cards to begin with. And yeah, they've got the Baron Scavenger, which is, 1 mana 6/6 taunt if you only have 10 or fewer cards left in your deck. There's the Quillbore, that's 3/3 lifesteal, deal 6 to a minion if you only have 10 or fewer cards in your deck. So that one feels like, depending on the matchup, a bit of a high roll out of Whizbang, because you can just hit the ground running so fast and kill people with a 15/15, or like they clear it and you're just like, okay, turn 7, Chef Nomi, good luck. Board of 6/6s.
I do wish that they had like some sort of an alternate hero portrait for those decks. so that you remembered that you were playing against a Whizbang deck, because it's very easy to like, I mean, it's not, I don't want to say very easy, but like, especially like the rogue where it's just like, oh, I just shuffled 5 duels treasures in. Like, it'd be nice to have some sort of reminder that, hey, you're not playing against, especially like if you just miss, if you like went to go get a snack, you came back after, and like turned away or whatever, and you missed the Whizbang thing going off, you could be very confused. And I think like just giving some other visual way to say, hey, weird stuff's about to happen and this is not a standard deck that you can go build, would be nice for that. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. But it getting some more permanent visual cue would be a benefit there. Just because like the old Whizbang was just like decks out of the, like they were recipe decks, right? So they were decks that you could just go in and build, the original Whizbang.
Sure. Yeah, these ones involve cards that are presently in Wild, that involve cards that are not collectible, cards that are from the wrong classes, right? There's a lot of that.
Well, I mean, that's just Rogue, but yeah.
So, like the Paladin, this deck is legendary. It's the Explorers. But, so you've got, like, all the versions. You've got Reno the Relicologist. You've got Reno the hero that poofs everything. Not the new one, but the
and I'm
mage
sure
one.
there's only one of each, so everything goes off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you can get your upgraded hero power with Finley. You can... I forget some of the other things, but
you can duplicate your hand with Elise, I guess, because that was...
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that one, but I think I did see...
Probably because it's terrible and nobody ever played it even when it was in Standard.
No, it was used to combo sometimes.
It was used in one like weird combo deck that wasn't very good.
I feel like I might be remembering that differently, but...
Okay.
It had a moment.
A moment. It did have a moment. I mean, most cards have a moment, yeah. So... Except for Commander Ulthok.
Commander Ulthok did have a moment off Countess.
Yeah.
Yes, well, yes. There's a time and a place for everything, and it's off the Countess.
I will miss Countess. I also feel like it's time for her to rotate, but
Yes.
I will miss her.
And I guess that means that we should rotate into news.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Okay, so we have patch 29.0, which we got on Monday with all of the things. So we, the patch notes are long and involved, and a lot of them revolve around the events, which we're going. They happened. We had a theory community day. We had a theory crafting stream. We had a lot of fun community day too. Everyone was on my stream hanging out on community day, and that was fun also, and playing the Frankenmeta.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone who came out.
Tried those Death Knight decks later, and they do not work nearly as well into Druid as a 40 health, 40 card Druid is a thing now, but that's neither here nor there. So we got the Warcraft Rumble cards in core, Nomelia Safe Pilot, Warsong Grunt, Night Elf Huntress, and Footman. Those are all available in the core set, along with the core changes are there. We also got the Wild Reverts, aka the Frankenmeta, where they take all of the not all of the cards, but the cards that are safe to revert any nerfs against them as they rotate to Wild. They will revert to their original forms, and then because of technical reasons, they have to do that before the set rotation happens. So you get a week where everything is bananas, and all the cats and dogs living together, what have you.
I'm still disappointed they didn't revert Denathrius. I feel like 10 mana is such a big ask in Wild that...
Well, it's not, though, because Guff is a thing in Wild, so...
Yeah, it's one class. I don't know.
But, so, the cards that are reverting, Blightfang, Glacial Advance, and Construct Quarter for Death Knight, Relic of Dimensions, Failscale Evoker for Demon Hunter, Wild Growth, and Miracle Growth for Druid. All of the Wild Seeds cards, so Spirit Poacher, Stag Charge, Wild Spirit, and Arelon, as well as Hope of Quel'Thalots and Faithful Companions for Hunter. So Hunter has been living its best life for the last couple days because a 5/4 that summons a 4/2 was never okay. A 4/2 weapon, rather.
On the community day stream, it was a lot of fun, and then I realized that I hadn't actually like I had dusted some of the wild seed cards at some point and had never recrafted them. And I'm like, oh, I can't really justify this for just like it's probably playable in wild, but like just for this week, I don't know. Like I don't know if I'm ever gonna play it in wild. So I figured I did have a chance to play it through you on Community Day stream, and
Yeah.
that was enough.
Because I have more dust than I know what to do with. So and I haven't had enough. I haven't enough good priest legendaries to make golden recently. So so we also got for Mage, Arcane Worm, Nightcloak Sanctum, and Spite Lash Siren. So Naga Mage enjoyers, this is your time. Feast and Famine, the Purator, and Light Ray for a Paladin were reverted. Priest had Boon of the Ascended and High Cultist Basileff. Rogue had Scribbling Stenographer, that's it. Just Scribbling Stenographer. I figured Rogue would have more, but Rogue's cards are all broken anyway, and they could stay nerfed. Warlock had Vile Library reverted, and then Warrior had From the Depths, Thori, Balor, and Nelly all reverted, and then neutrals were Pufferfist, School Teacher, Smothering Starfist, and Prince Renethal. So Prince Renethal now gives you 40 life again, and 40 cards, which is why people are living their very best lives on ladder this week with Renethal decks, and I was already ready for Renethal to go, and now I am doubly ready for Renethal to go. Get out.
I'm sorry to say that I contributed to the problem with Pocket Speedle Druid because I couldn't play Hunter, and so I won quite a bit with the Druid.
I mean, it takes a good person with a Renethal to beat a bad person with a Renethal, so, it's fine. So we also had some cards that were banned banned or nerfed heavily for Wild that are, as they are, I think they might have all been banned, I'm not sure. But as they rotate into Wild and out of Standard, they're reworked to be a little bit more fair for Wild. So Death Blossom Whomper has gone to a 5-mana 6/5. That's the Druid card that's draw Death Rattle minion and gain its Death Rattle. That's probably a little bit less oppressive since Thaddeus has been nerfed into the ground, but still, it's being effectively reverted, but reverted to like a buffed form, I think, which is why it's getting that treatment. Yeah. But now that Thaddeus is no longer a thing, it's a little bit better. Halderon Brightwing is a 3-mana 3/4 for legendary for Hunter. That is Battle Cry, give all arcane spells in your hand and deck spell damage +1. That's again a modified from its original form because it originally, when it was printed, did not give a buff to spells in hand. So this is the best version of himself that this is going into Wild. Switcheroo was banned in Wild, and it is being unbanned, but it is going up to 5 mana from 3. And Tome Tampering was also banned in Wild, and it was going from 3 mana to 6 mana. Because Tome Tampering was incredibly broken in Discard Warlock.
Because Tome Tampering did crimes.
And then Mech Warper is unbanned in Wild, but it is going to a 4-mana 4/4. That is also affecting Twist. Because Mech Paladin is occasionally a thing that gets played in Twist in Wild and will be played in Twist again at some point. Well, probably not now that Mech Warper is getting this nerf, because this is 4 mana is a million in the Mech Paladin in the way that it wants to be played. So
it does feel like Paladin is more likely than anyone else to still possibly be able to use it just because they have the Inventor's Aura. But
yep.
Yeah, not quite as early Insanity.
So we have the Year of the Pegasus. So that will be March 19th. That will be Blizzard O'Clock, which is 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you are in another time zone, adjust from there. That is when Whizbang's Workshop will go live. And then Voyage to the Sunken City, March of the Lich King, and Nat Cursa, Murder Castle Nathria will rotate out into Wild. So you'll see a big clock. If you've never been through this before, you'll see a big splash screen. There'll be a big clock where the year icon changes, and You'll know. You're not going to be surprised, I promise you. We also got some changes to Arena, which are pretty different. So there's a new arena pool, but normally when we get a new arena season, we get a list of expansions. And this is a curated cube, what we would call a cube in Magic, where instead of having just all of the sets, it is a curated list of handpicked cards from most of the sets. I believe all of Whizbang's Workshop and maybe Core. I'm not sure about Core, but certainly all of Whizbang's Workshop is in this cube. But also the rest of the cards are cards that have been picked across sets. There are card types that have been banned in Wild. There are in Arena rather. There are hero cards. There are Colossals. I believe, I'm not sure if there are Titans, but I would not be surprised if there are. But those are a little bit more fair in a format like this because the overall power level of the pool is so high that those things can kind of exist there. So if you want to play with the Whizbang's Workshop cards, this is the way to do it. Because they've put them in ahead of time. So if you are not someone who was able to participate in Theorycrafting, and you want to try the cards out, you can go start up an arena run and go try those and see how that goes. I've heard very positive things about this arena season, so it's definitely something worth trying, especially if you don't want to spend your last couple days of the Year of the Wolf queuing into Renathal. So there's a small change to signature frames where they're going to be putting a gem to indicate the rarity of the card into the top of the frame. They will be in there for Whizbang's Workshop going forward. They're not changing any prior signature cards, but it'll just make it a little bit easier to tell what kind of rarity a signature card is. We are getting catch-up packs for Whizbang's Workshop. They will have just from last year, so Festival of Legends, Titans, and Showdown in the Badlands. They will work the same as the other ones, but they're just going to be pulling from 3 sets instead of 5. So, if you are a person or a person in need of catch-up packs, those will be available. There have been a number of people have been coming back for the Hearthstone anniversary, and even coming back because of BlizzCon last year. So there's probably a good need still for the catch-up packs, and it's a good thing. Or if you're trying to start up an account in a second server, then that's also an option for you. There is a legendary quest right now to get the 10th anniversary card back. It looks like the window of the tavern with a big 10 with gold leaf on the bottom of it. And it looks very nice. The 10 always faces you, regardless of whether it's in your hand or your opponent's hand. It's a pretty easy legendary quest to finish. So you pretty much just play games and you'll get through it. So go make sure to do that before that expires. I don't know if it actually does expire or if it's just there forever, but go do that, get your card back. We will have a Whizbang's Workshop event starting on March 26th, going through April 16th with event quests for. There will be standard packs, 2 Whizbang's Workshop packs, and the Bobble Mal'Ganis Warlock hero skin, which sounds delightful. And there's also a Leeroy Jenkins hero skin in the shop, starting on March 19th. He is holding chicken. He's bouncing around. He claps. When you do a WoW, you can go look at the patch notes to see all of the different emotes that he's going to do and all the wiggling around that he's going to do. There is also apparently, it is not in the patch notes, but there is a King Crush legendary hero skin coming. And I have not yet bought a legendary hero skin, but and it may not even be on my account. It almost certainly will be on Maureen's account because she loves King Crush like a son. So I have a feeling that will finally get that to happen, but yeah, there's also going to be a card back, which is with King Crush, which has got a footprint of King Crush with a Hearthstone swirl in the middle of the footprint. It is also a very good card back. So King Crush fans who were worried about King Crush going out of core, fear not, there is plenty of King Crush for you to have available to you. You don't have to worry about having King Crush just for the last play of the game. You can have King Crush with you the entire game, which has to be an upgrade. I have to imagine.
Are the emotes just roars? Is that how that works?
I mean, based on the Inoyos, I would imagine they have to be, right? Or like Rattlegore from Duels. I imagine it just has to be different roars, or maybe a whimper occasionally. I guess we'll find out. I'm very excited to see what that looks like. I wish it was in the client when we were playing yesterday, because I absolutely would have put that. I would have queued a lot more Hunter if that was available. Just to have that available. I really would have, and it wasn't there, so I was sad. But we'll see what happens when that gets added to the shop. There are, if you play WoW, there are events in WoW. I'm not going to pretend to understand what they are, but go do them if you are a WoW person. There is the Hearthstone Music of the Tavern album is in Apple Music and Spotify and YouTube and Deezer. What is Deezer? I've never heard of Deezer. I'm old. Now I'm a Deezer geezer apparently. But you can go get that and your streaming music service of choice, and it's basically just all of the in-game board sounds going from the opening music all the way through Whizbang's workshop. So I was playing it as background music on the stream last night. It's very good. I occasionally forgot that I had that playing as opposed to the in-game music and was a little confused for a minute, but
I was a little skeptical of, I listen to this music all the time when I'm playing. Do I want to be hearing it other places? But I realized it's actually fantastic when I want to concentrate on something. I'm so used to concentrating on the game while hearing this music. And it just totally transferred over to like concentrating on my work while hearing this music, which is good. So I was enjoying it, actually, even though don't get too excited because the licensing for the cinematic music is different. So the Voyage to the Sunken City trailer is not there, very tragically. But all the in-game music is there, and that's good.
McGase also made the mistake of saying on Discord, "Oh, hey, I want some more video game music to listen to," and then got me into autistic info dump mode and ended up getting gifted with a 64-hour long playlist of video game music. So enjoy that for the next 6 months of your life, I guess. But
thank you.
So we're not going to go through all the bug fixes. There are a bunch of them, but there are a couple of pretty significant gameplay changes that you are going to want to be aware of with this patch. One is that temporary mana, say from the coin or innervate or whatever, can now allow you to go above max mana. So if you are at 10 as in a normal situation and you coin, you will go up to 11. So that opens up some new combo potential. So just be aware of that. That applies to if you have played Audio Amp, then you'll go up to 12. If you are a degenerate and you've gone all the way up to 20 with Wild Heart Guff, you can go to 21. And there's also things that let you get more than one temporary mana at a time in Wild. But yeah, so just be aware that you can do that. And you also can now have multiple of the same sigil, objective, or aura in play at the same time. So prior to this patch, if you were to say play a Crusader aura, and you have that in play and you tried to play a Crusader, or I forget if it wouldn't let you or if it would just not do anything.
It wouldn't let you.
It wouldn't let you. So now it will let you, and those will stack, which with Crusader aura in particular is terrifying.
And deputization.
Yes.
Yes. This is part of why I am excited about Paladin and also a little worried about facing Paladin, because part of that, burst, kill them with a mech, or it could just be Leeroy, or it could just be any friggin' thing that sticks. If you have a double deputization aura, that's 6, or if it's Streamscavate, that's 12 lifesteal. And we did see a Kibler special interaction with Crusader aura and Warsong Grunt.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of potential for a real aura deck now, because you don't end up in the dead card situation where you've got multiples of the same aura. Now that there's also an aura that summons minions at the end of your turn, there's going to be the situation of just you're summoning a 6-drop every turn, and it has lifesteal because of deputization. So if they leave it up, they'll just die, right? It's just I always have a minion. It's always going to be buffed from auras, and if you leave it there, you're going to get shroomscavated.
And also
Yep.
to be clear, because I had seen someone who was surprised by how it worked with the aura stacking. It's so if you have a deputization aura up and you play a second one, it doesn't add to the duration of the first one. It adds the effect again. So now you have +6.
But they tick separately, right?
They tick separately, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they each have their own ticks, right? So you just played another one like on top of it. You didn't modify the first one.
They're
just to be
active
clear.
at the same time.
Yeah.
And again, if you're a real lover of fun, you could play Dry Scale Deputy and Priest and get 2 copies of Love Everlasting at the same time.
I guess.
You know, if you really are there for the love, then you could do that. That's a thing you could do. I'm just saying, it's not all Paladin. You have other options. So Wrath of Air Totem is back. That's the spell damage totem, and it has replaced the strength totem in the hero power for Shaman. That's something that they told us was happening at the start of the reveal season, and now that's live. Which is also extremely relevant for Twist, because there were some decks in like the One Night in Karazhan meta that were not nearly as good when you could not have a 25% chance to roll spell damage for Spirit Claws. So Paladin now has 7 different art pieces, 6 in the original, 4 Silverhand recruits. So there's a little bit more diversity there. They are you just need to be aware that that's happening, because it's a little bit confusing the first time you see it. If you're not prepared for it, you've probably seen it by now if you're playing it. But it's also means that we finally have diversity in the Silverhand recruit phalanx, so we can no longer call it Dude Paladin, so we will have to find another name for that.
The art's really
because
cool.
they are not all dudes. Yeah, they are. The art is very cool. Yeah, and they have different voice lines and everything. It's pretty neat. It's a good time. I mean, it's the kind of thing that you're almost. It almost makes you wonder why it took so long, but who cares? It's good to have it now. So it's a good thing, just to not have the same dude all the time. I was looking through like the Whispers of the Old Gods cards, and I almost was like, oh yeah, there's that one that turns your Silverhand recruits into Murlocs. Why can't we just like have that for Murlocs? I'm like, oh right, because they're Murlocs. So you can also now in the collection, you can favorite more than one coin. You can have a random favorite coin, a random own coin, or one specific coin. So much like hero portraits and card backs, there are enough coins that you can now set random coin in there. And they have fixed Hearthstone Brews, Demon Hunter hand. The cards will now be their launch versions, and they've adjusted the hand order to make it flow better with Outcast.
Yes.
So enjoy that when that happens.
Thank goodness. Skull on the far left, I hope.
Yes. I would imagine. Or Twin Slice. Twin Slice is fine too. There's also a server-side patch that came out today as we're recording this. There was a weird bug where legacy cards, so like basically the basic cards that had versions entering core in 29 were given a rarity, and that meant that they showed up in packs even though you get them for free. So they took those away, and the people who got those will get dust refunds coming up to make them whole again. And there was also a bug where now that we have those multiple Silverhand recruits, they were all being treated as separate minions for purposes of tiers.
Oh no!
Which kind of sucks. For tiers specifically, because tiers resurrects 3 or 4 separate unique paladin minions that have died, and if you've just summoned a bunch of 1/1s, then you just get back nothing but 1/1. So they fixed that. So they're all going to count as the same card now. So there's, and there's a couple of other bugs, but those are really the most important ones that were coming out of that server side fix. Just kind of a few things that they've either found through Arena or through, bugs coming up in Theorycrafting that they were able to resolve. So that's that. There was also if you are the kind of person who typically skips Tavern Brawl, there is a brand new one this week. This is the first time in I can't remember how long that we've gotten a new Tavern Brawl, and it is called Say My Name. So it just presents you with a board of minions, and then it gives you a bunch of cards with the names of the minions, and you need to play the card on the minion from the art in order to clear them. And if you put a card on the wrong minion, then it resets.
Wait,
And if
it's
you
a
clear the
puzzle?
board, it's a puzzle. Yeah. And if you clear the board, then the opponent's portrait explodes, and you finish the Tavern Brawl. So it's a pretty fun little knowledge test. You can sort of figure some of it out. Apparently, there are some people who have just been spending like an hour on like the Hearthstone wiki, or like try like looking up art or looking up card names and trying to find the art and seeing what they are. But you can do that. It's a fun little test, and if not, then you can just look up the art for the names of the cards. Like you get a hand that's like overflowing. It's like 20 or 25 cards in your hand.
If you've played for a long time, then you probably know a lot of it, and you can kind of guess the rest. Like, oh, this is a legendary, so it has to have a name that's not generic, right? So it's probably this one. But it did take me a couple tries because there was a few expansions I missed, and I'm like, I have never seen this card in my life. So
And there are also some very bad minions that no one's ever played unless they got randomly generated. And like the minions where you see it generated and you have to hover over it to see what the hell it is. Like those are the ones that trip you up, regardless of what expansion they came out in.
but you can often kind of figure out, if you're able to get most of them, you can figure out the rest of them. Like, this one is the only Murloc. Like they didn't personally customize it to trick you. So you can.
Celestlon was involved. He might have purposely done it to trick you.
Well, then I can blame him for the two that I got wrong. So
okay, fair enough. All right. So we also got some. This hasn't been confirmed yet. I'm going to qualify this right off the bat. But we started hearing some reporting out of China that there is they're planning to reunite with NetEase as early as April or May of this year to bring World of Warcraft and Hearthstone back to China. So that agreement expired in January of 2023. And then Hearthstone, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and basically everything but Diablo Immortal, which was done as a co-development under a separate agreement, all ceased operations in China after those servers went down. So that would be a big, big boon to the game. Just there's a lot of players in China, and we don't know how many of the bots are due to them having to rebuild collections, but I mean, certainly at least some of them are, because those players lost their collections when the servers went down, and then they had to rebuild them on another server if they weren't already doing that, and that takes time and money. So that might have something to do with it. But those users would all hopefully get their collections restored, though it's been 2 years, so they'd have to start over with catch-up packs, presumably, but be nice if they do something for those players. I'm sure that they will consider that. I don't know anything, but that would be cool. But it sounds like a lot of what happened. I was reading some of the history of this because I went down a rabbit hole after I saw this news. And it sounds like there was like some sort of a misunderstanding between NetEase and Bobby Kotick way back when, where there was some sort of a regulation issue between China and Blizzard, and like NetEase was offering to help smooth over the regulation, assuming the deal went through, and Kotick read it as a threat through the translation, and then that led to a lack of trust and whatever. And yeah, so now that he's out of the way and Microsoft's the owner of Blizzard, then it probably makes those things easier. And then if they could just restart where they left off, and I mean, obviously those things are never quite smooth, but if they just have to fire up the things and kind of apply some updates and stuff like that to get back up and running, hopefully that'll be a little bit better than having to have another provider like start from scratch. Like they have a lot of the things there. They probably don't have the people. They have to get the people back or hire new people, but they at least have the servers and the software and stuff like that for it. So that would be amazing news if that happens. So we'll we'll get there when we get there, hopefully. So Also, we had a bit of sad news this week that Ahirun, if you don't know who Ahirun is the he manages the site beerbrick.com, which is the it's the biggest Hearthstone site in Japan, and also one of the most prolific collectors of deck lists regardless of region. And he posted a long note on Twitter, like a note to like a Twitlonger type service in Japan, effectively saying that he's had to effectively be on the graveyard shift for like the last 7 years, because all of the news and announcements and card reveals for the most part happen on US time, and it's not always clear when things are going to be announced, like at Blizzard o'clock. Like Blizzard o'clock in the US is like in the middle of the night in Japan. So he basically had to change his waking hours to be awake for Blizzard o'clock to be able to report on that news as it broke. And wasn't really able to take any time off or know, because you don't know when those things are going to happen or when it's safe to do that. And even if you did, it's hard to get your sleep schedule back on that once you've gotten off. And he's been working very hard at this for a few years, and is deciding to take some time to, spend on himself and on his family and kind of restore a normal waking schedule. So the site's still going to continue. He's got, I believe, Mr. Zero is the name, who's going to be taking it over and is going to be posting instead. But I mean, Ahirun is a legend in this space, and you like, it is never not a thrill when you see, the rubber ducky liking or certainly retweeting one of your tweets, and wish him all of the best in his retirement, and hopefully he will get the life balance that he's been looking for. So all the best to him. And then we have there was an interview with Cora and Nathan Lyon-Smith, who's the executive producer in GameSpot. I didn't see this, so Miguel, so you want to talk about this really fast?
Yeah, this was just an interview mostly with Cora about the 10-year celebration and the new expansion. There'll be some stuff that you already know as a listener of Concede, an avid Hearthstone player, but there's also some insights into the design process and why they did certain things for the anniversary. So I did put the notes in the link in the show notes, or if you just search for Hearthstone and GameSpot, 10-year celebration, I'm sure it will come up. And it talks about, thinking about this as a nostalgia trip. Apparently they have to come up with the theme for the expansion a year in advance. And they had kind of been thinking a whimsical, like, Whizbang workshop type of, I don't know if it was called that type of thing. And then they realized, wait a minute, that'll line up really well with the 10th anniversary, maybe. Like, it's close, because they don't know exactly what the day is going to be that it releases either. And so then they thought, oh, we have to do this. We have to really lean into it and just make this expansion part of the 10-year celebration. So, and they talk some about how they came up with something like Miniaturize, which and how they came up with the Shutterblock card. They had that as an example of trying to here's something that iconic from Hearthstone's past, and how do we bring that back into modern Hearthstone? It has to do with battle cries. We don't want it to just happen for, be as insane as OG Shutterblock. So, we want it to be a new way to repeat things. So what if we give it Miniaturize, and you can do it twice, but it's not like completely crazy? And at first, apparently, and they also made sure, like, you have to space these out. You can't play the first Shutterwalk and then play the mini, and then it triggers 9 times the next one. Like, all the iterations they had to go through and make sure that, like, it was going to work as intended, and the not targeting the hero's face and stuff like that. So there's some. It's actually a decently long interview with quite a few things, especially from Cora, who is very articulate in general. So.
Well, when you're making a manufacturing plant, safety is priority number 1. So that is the news. And we have a lot of thoughts about a lot of cards after playing for a lot of hours. So with no further ado, let us go and talk about that.
All right, so if you haven't been with us before, the way that we organize our last discussion before the release of a new set is our card superlatives. And so we have 5 categories: a card you can't wait to play with, or more with, since we had a chance to play a little bit with it yesterday; card you're scared of; card you want to be good but isn't; card you think is over or underrated; and card you don't understand. So we'll go through this, and it's a way to organize talking about the cards, and obviously it also helps make sure we don't talk about every card and keep you here for 3 hours.
Nobody would do that. Nobody's nuts enough to talk about all 135 cards in rapid succession. That would never happen.
So we were going to start with card that you can't wait to play more with, and Wicked stole mine. So I had kind of a couple.
I gave you 12 hours before I entered the dock.
It's true. In my defense, I had to sleep, and then I had to get up and go straight to work, and then I had to do work things at work.
So did I.
Okay, fair enough. And then I was slow getting in later, and then I came in just after. Second in on what Wicked's going to say, but if we're picking something that's not in Priest, I am excited to play with Shutterblock. And then I also put as a runner-up with Tarim and Paladin, which I talked about a little bit already. But for Shutterblock, there just seems like there's so many different possibilities. We did play a little bit with the Wish Upon a Star, giant board. We didn't even really draw it in a very great order, and it still worked because it just makes really big stuff. But there's plenty of burst potential with that and charge minions, but you can also play it with Inza. Clark didn't even triple his Inza and still killed us with a Nature Shaman because he's Clark Hellscream and Nature Shaman is his thing. But
it's the best deck ever because Clark's winning with it.
But I feel like there could be something there with the there's not a lot of the overload cards are rotating, but there's still a fair bit of burst that you can do with that. And you can also get a fair bit of hero attack with Turn the Tides and the new Sandar Elemental or maybe a weapon. So I do think there's got to be something, and I like that it's not 100% obvious exactly what the best way to build this deck is going to be, and also that there's a lot of things that are good to triple. You can easily put a lot of different things into your deck that are good to triple. There's that 7-mana elemental, there's the slimes from Hagatha, but there's many battle cries that it can be flexible to just get more of. So
yeah. I mean, we lived the dream, right? Because we got Hagatha to pull Wish Upon a Star, which is the one that gives your hand, deck, and battlefield +2/+3. So we tripled that, and then everything was ginormous.
Even the little 1/1 mini Sandar Elemental was incredibly huge. It was so if you manage to get that off, I mean, that definitely seems like the most immediately, probably this is the way you want to at least try building it first way to do it, because Wish Upon a Star, especially when you triple it, is just so powerful. And it does, even if you don't triple it, if you play it with the slime, it buffs itself. So it comes with a big body instead of being 7 mana, I have to have already had a board or I have no board. If you play it off the slime, then suddenly, you at least have one big thing going on. So that, I think, is definitely worthwhile to play with Hagatha.
So I'm dismayed to be saying this, but the most effective Shutterblock decks were tendril decks.
That's right. I didn't actually.
Yes,
we
I
didn't
forgot
actually
about
run
that,
into
yeah.
this ourselves, but you were saying that you saw this.
So this was just the most bewildering thing to behold on the theory casting is that, yeah, some people were trying what you described, the make your minions huge stuff by combining Hagatha with Wish Upon a Star being now a minion battle cry. That's too much work. Just play all the tendril cards because Shaman is one of the tendril classes. So it has, I believe, these 4/4s that Death Rattle will give you 2 chaotic tendrils. And then there's a neutral 5-cost card that gives you 2 tendrils. And for just 7 mana, you can Shutter Block and play a tendril in the same turn to tick up 3 times, right? Just get that count going even quicker so that you can hit 10 as quickly as possible. And this is the most only in a 4-set meta deck, because the reason it works is the only 10-cost spells presently are Table Flip and Sunset Volley. Table Flip.
Does it not play legendary spells?
No.
Oh.
Or it at least doesn't play Galactic Projection Orb, which would otherwise be a low roll, I think.
Yeah.
It would be a weird one anyway. So, Table Flip, the Warlock spell, that's 10 mana, reduces for each card in your hand. It's a hand Warlock thing, does 3 damage to all enemy minions, only minions. And then Sunset Volley, the mage spell that does, it's basically Mask of Cthulhu. It does 10 random pings at enemies, and then summons a 10-drop. So if you just flip enough coins, you'll hit Sunset Volley enough times to kill them. And if there's minions in the way, well, if you roll the table flips first, that'll clear the minions. And then I think the reason it works is because even the sort of fail state, you're clearing the board.
Right.
With every tendril.
You're clearing the way for the Sunset Volley.
Yeah.
Right. So it was you've got, I don't know if they were actually running the 1 mana card Chaotic Tendril. I would imagine not. But if you just have those 4 cards that give you 2 tendrils each, that's 8. And then Geppetto says
God.
every 1 attack or 1 health minion you get back from its battle cry. So that's a full hand refill of tendrils. And then, of course, Yogg, you make hand space and you can fill your hand with tendrils that way. So that works. And someone's asking, if you're doing the battle cry of the tendril and it casts Sunset Volley, won't it not deal damage? No, because the battle cry doesn't say deal damage. It says cast a 10-cost spell. So...
Yeah. We talked about this last week, yeah.
That hardly matters because really all you need the tripling to do is to ramp up your spells. So even if it did work that way, if you just use that to get you up to the 10s faster, you still just have a ton of tendrils from Geppetto, from Yogg, that you have enough rolls of 10-cost spells to probably get there. And, even if you don't get the lethal damage, you're summoning 10 drops. It's very, very silly.
I should have realized because I saw this clip and switched my card you can't wait to play with and card you're scared of. But I saw a clip that Clark had where he was facing one of the theory crafting opponents who does not have their name there. Could be someone from the press, could have been a dev playing, who...
Oh, I think we found, if it's the clip that he posted on Twitter, it was Blah and Minty Fresh was behind him telling him to emote.
That absolutely tracks. So they got, for their 8 mana spell, they got Wheel of Death, but it didn't matter because they had so many tendrils. They kept Sunset Volleying. They didn't manage to clear Clark's board because Clark had a Sargeras active with the 3/4 taunt imps, but could not kill them. And so Clark ended up dying to the Wheel of Death.
Oh, no.
So I got to see the animation through this Twitter clip of the Wheel of Death. It's somewhat similar to Rivendare.
I've only seen the Wheel of Death click up to 4, and that was cool enough. But
yeah, I mean, there's not many high-cost spells right now. So in terms of 8s or 9s, like the Scourge and Sunwell. Are those the only 9s? Is Sunwell's
rotated.
going away? So the Scourge.
Yeah.
I don't know what other 9s. I guess there's the Crane game from Warlock.
I mean, I do know
Crane
that
game.
when I was watching Language Hacker playing Spell Mage, Yogbox ended it more often than not. Like the plan was just get to 8 in Yogbox, and Yogbox was generally going to do something you wanted it to do.
That was not what we saw on the cast. Yogbox generally was going to kill you, but I don't know. Your mileage may vary. Certainly, it seemed as though the limited pool of big spells means Yogg in a Box is that much higher odds of giving you Wheel of Death. So, particularly when you're casting, 3+ a game because you have 2 and then Orb plays another one.
And you were correct on 9 mana. It's just the Scourge and Crane Game.
Yeah.
So it either does nothing, unless you happen to have demons in your deck, or it does the Scourge. Coin flip.
Right. So there's a lot of instances where it's just like sort of on the way up to doing the Sunset Volley thing. You could just be like, oh, hey, look, a big board. It's...
Yeah. Yeah, there are actually just not very many big spells left in general, it looks like. So,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, Miracle Growth is 7, right? So that's still there. That came back into core, right? And like Cultivation. Stranglethorn Heart, I think you can generate. I mean, I don't know what it's going to do for you, but it's there. Sunset Volley, Yogg in the Box can't cast itself. It might be able to cast Orb, I'm not sure. But then
I'm thinking no if the Chaotic Tendrils don't.
No, it does not. Yeah, they do not ping pong back and forth. It does not cast the orb.
And then you have Everything Must Go, Wheel of Death, Crane Game, Table Flip, and that's it. So you're very likely to Wheel of Death yourself with Yogbox.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, live by the Yogg, die by the Yogg, I suppose.
Or
But...
draw 7 cards with 777s.
Oh yeah, 777s is a thing too, yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, well, we'll get to Mage. But in the meantime, we also mentioned, so the last time we did this, the card I couldn't wait to play with was Mining Casualties and also Hidden Gem. Hidden Gem is what I played with a lot, and that was very fun. So that was a good card. But I'm also somewhat scared of the card that Edelweiss put for card you can't wait to play more with. So what was that card, Edel?
Sonya Water Dancer. So I will preface that this was bugged during theory crafting. I got confirmation it's not going to work this way.
That is a bug? Okay. I could see it. It's one of those bugs that you could see an argument for why it would actually like legitimately work that way, and they might change it anyway, even if it was a legitimate interaction.
So you'll have to do a little bit extra work to get the truly obscene numbers, but the way that Sonya Water Dancer was working in the theory crafting is that if you had, say, the miniature version of the pirate that makes your next card cost 3 less, you would play that for 1 and play Sonya. Sonya would get discounted from 4 to 1, and because she says after, although I guess this is a bug, would give you a 0 copy of herself. So you would just immediately have this 0 mana Sonya to either reserve for a following turn or play immediately. And what I was doing frequently was if you have a weapon equipped, I saw someone else do this and immediately I was like, I have to try that. So if you have a weapon equipped, you could be doing weapon things. You could just have a dagger because you're a rogue. Valera's Gift is a 1 mana spell. So you'll get a 0 mana version of the gift when you play it. And if you have 2 Sonyas in play, you'll get 2 0 mana Valera's Gifts. Okay. You pick Deadly Poison. That is a 1 mana spell. Which, because of the Sonyas, will then give you 2 more Deadly Poison. So that is +6 to your weapon. Then you play a 0 mana gift and get another +6, and a 0 mana gift and get another +6. It's so insane the amount of attack that you can add to your weapon out of nowhere. I was playing against Regis one of these games. He had me dead to rights with Handlock on his next turn. And I just look and I'm like, well, because I equipped this dagger last turn and he didn't kill my 4/3, he was at 22. I swung at him with the 4/3, and then I made a 19 attack weapon and won that game. So you won't be able to do it as simply, but if you have Zola, you can kind of get a similar effect going on for 6 mana. It's basically, rather than playing the mini discount pirate before Sonya, you play it after Sonya. So you'll get a 0 mana one. So it goes Sonya, mini, you play Zola on the Sonya for free, then you play the 0 cost mini that you got to discount the second Sonya, play that for 1, and at that point you fill in whatever you're trying to do a bunch of copies of.
Yep. Sure.
So what I want to experiment with is I also saw people doing rogue shenanigans with actually Gaslight Gatekeeper, which is the shuffle your hand in, and because they're putting Valdori Strider, I think it's called, that shuffles 4 ambushes or 3 ambushes into your deck that summon 4/4s. And then we've got the new giant that's 20 mana, 8/8, but reduces for every card you've drawn this turn. And there's a new spell, Everything Must Go, 8 mana, but discounts for every card you've drawn this turn, summons 2 random 4-drops. So it's just like a draw a lot of cards rogue, and you can get to a point where obviously your giants are free. You can use Sonya with Breakdance. So you go Sonya, you play a free giant, you breakdance it, you get an extra breakdance, replay the giant, breakdance it again for 0, so you got 2 8/8s with rush, then you replay the 0 mana giant. This is probably too much, but I want to try adding in Bounce Around, because if you can discount it with, it's more playable with the mini to discount it, so you're playing it for 1 mana. Bounce Around makes all your stuff cost 1 mana. So you can just multiply your giants by playing Sonya and all these 1 mana giants.
I do want to shout out Potato from the Discord, who made a version of this deck, and then we did not fully understand and immediately took out the Gaslight Gatekeeper and the Playhouse Giant and the Everything Must Go before
we
playing
had no
it.
idea what was happening.
So sorry about that,
We're like,
Potato.
why? Yeah. We're like, why are these in here? These look terrible. Let's take those out.
Potato even said you have to look at the post to make sure you understand, and I looked at the beginning of it and then thought I understood, and then did not read the full thing.
Listen, my priest brain can't comprehend rogue shenanigans. Like I'm not smart enough, clearly.
This is what I get for always like putting too long instructions for my students and then being like, please read this before you just do stuff. And then of course that is not what happened. The longer I've been teaching, the more I've learned not to do that. So I but I should have known, right? If they read the whole directions.
We just absolutely Leeroy Jenkins that deck. That's what we did. Just too late. Let's do this. Time's up. So, but and honestly, like, you can do all that to kill your opponent, or you can just play Time Wander Zarimi and then just kill your opponent with a lot less thinking. Like, which is the card that I can't wait to play with more. And I mean, this is like, I was already over the moon with this card, and like, we were trying in Reno Priest. It was fine there. It's probably still fine. Like, you have to be a little bit more choosy with the dragons that you're pulling, because you probably, you may not have to be, but like, you have to, when you only have one, then you start getting into some of the bargain basement dragons, which are not great. Like, you start thinking about playing things like Fairy Dragon, which whenever you're looking at playing Fairy Dragon, you probably need to start rethinking what you're doing. But and Time Wander Zarimi, again, 5 mana 4/6 dragon for priest, battle cry once per game. If you summon 5 other dragons, take an extra turn. So we ended up going to like a full on dragon priest, just like a mid-range, like old school style dragon priest. I wish we had Dustbreaker, but other than that, it was fine. Fly Off the Shelves is effectively Dustbreaker anyway.
I kept making Wicked put in Whelp Wrangler to like all these decks, because if you have Thirsty Drifters, it's good for Thirsty Drifters. If you have Fly Off the Shelves, it's more dragons. We did, though, in the Reno Priest, where I made him put it in because we might not have had enough dragons, we got it off a creation protocol because our other hits were really bad, I guess. And that is too many Whelp Wranglers.
The whelps were wrangling us at that point is what was happening. There was just too many of them, and we couldn't get rid of these things. Like, they were just stuck in our hand, and just like, we were at a point, I think that was the deck where we were at a point where like, I need to make room in my hand, and every one of my cards makes more cards.
We hadn't drawn Zarimi yet. And so we were like, we can't burn a card, and we can't not burn a card.
So, but we ended up making just like a regular like mid-range Dragon Priest, and we had Alex Draza at the top end because we figured, okay, well, you know, we'll play Zarimi, we'll have a board, and then we'll Alex them and we'll kill them. And you don't need Alex. You really don't even. We cut Alex. You don't need Alex because like you just hit them with your dragons, which are big butts and not going away easily. And then as long as you have enough attack on board, like Zarimi's 4 attack, if you have any sort of a board that sticks, then you just play Zarimi. You've probably got enough damage. You attack, and then you play Zarimi, and you attack again, and they die. And it's great. And then you move on to the next game, and you've somehow played a priest game in under 15 minutes. Congratulations. So, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, you can play it in Reno Priest 2. You can play it in, you can probably play it in a 2 of Control Priest. Like, it's not hard to get 5 dragons. Like, Time Lost Proto-Drake is 2-1. Each Clay Matriarch is 4-1. You have Creation Protocol. You have Power Chord Synchronize. Like, it is not difficult to get 5 dragons down. And this is, wow. It was never not lethal when we played it. Like, we sometimes spent a little bit too much time, like, trying to figure out the lethal puzzle, and it was never a puzzle. It was just hit them in the face. That was the puzzle.
You're gonna make me play Blood DK just so I have enough life to survive 2 turns of attacks.
You know what? I got Smarms to play Priest. That's how broken this is.
She was already doing it just because she's in love with Raza. But
yeah.
All right. Well, and last time the card that you couldn't wait to play with Edel was Bran, which makes
that remains
sense.
true.
Remains true.
I'm more excited now because Astalor is gone.
And Wicked, you had picked Glowstorm Gyreworm.
Yeah, accurate.
Yep. And probably, again, still a good thing to be playing in Reno.
Yep.
All right. Card that you're scared of. Wicked, what is the card that you are scared of?
A hunter card, unfortunately. Jungle Gym is terrifying. I will go so far as to say this.
Evil! It's an evil card!
Since we didn't talk about Hunter, in case you didn't see the theory crafting, we should maybe define this card for people since it was revealed after.
So it's a 2-mana location with 3 durability, by the way. Like, let's let that sink in for a second.
Oh, that's not staying. That's gonna go to 2.
Yeah. So deal 1 damage to a random enemy, repeat for each friendly beast. So like you just get Trog Gem Tosser is a card that looked kind of mid until you saw it played and then realized that it's just like huge burst.
Mm-hmm.
And this is that, but you get to do it 3 times and you just make beasts by just breathing as a hunter. And then you clear their board with whatever your rushes are. Like one of the lists I saw had Bunny Stompers, so you could just rush everything in, and then you go ahead and play this, and either you use it to clear the board so your minions can go face, or you just use your minions to clear the board so this could clear face. And it is so much damage, and you get to do it 3 times. Have I mentioned you get to do it 3 times? For 2 mana, you get to do it 3 times.
And then you have another one.
It is, yeah. And then you have another one.
If it's a full board, that's 18 damage.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no way that's staying at 3 activations. There's no possible way.
It definitely seemed like a card like, oh, well, because of board space, it's limited in terms of, yeah, it performed much better than we realized. I think just because of the new cards that Hunter got, in addition to ones it already had, are great for flooding board. the weapon, the remote control that summons a rush. You've got the 4 costs that makes a board full of rushers, and
Yeah, you got the weapon that summons a 1/1.
Saddle Up has,
Oh, yeah.
Sneak of snakes.
incredible targets now. Yeah, this 1 mana summon 2 snakes, so you can really go wide, and of course there's the 4/1 Jormungandrs. So that deck was just kind of taking people down on stream because,
Except when we played it, apparently.
well, because a lot of stuff in the theory crafting tends to be little slower to get running, and so if you're just not prepared to deal with a bunch of beasts and 4/1s, and the thing that gives you all of the animal companions, like, yes, it's a lot of mana to play all of them, but just getting to play Huffer when you want Huffer, Liak when you want Liak,
Yeah.
Misha when you want Misha is really powerful.
That was very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just playing Leok for 4 mana when you have a big board is fine, right? Like 2 mana for the thing and then 2 mana to actually play the body. You would pay 4 mana for Leok on demand, right? Like, you just would do that. And then you get the other 2 as 2 mana copies just for fun. Or, you would pay 4 mana for like 4 mana deal 4 face is not great rate, but it's fine, especially given that the minion sticks around. So like they're all kind of fine for 4 mana, but the fact that you get the other 2 for 2 mana apiece is, it's kind of disgusting. And you have things like the buzzard still that can buff all of them, and it's a lot.
We'll have to see if it holds up under potential control decks that couldn't exist because of the card requirements. But yeah, it's a little spooky.
Yeah, all this stuff has an Odin Warrior test that it needs to pass soon. But it was definitely the spooky deck of theory crafting. But there was also other spooky decks. So, Edel, what did you pick as a card that you're scared of?
Yeah, so I thought about picking Alonius, but I realized that Alonius really wasn't the spookiest card in the Druid. It was Sky Mother Aviana. So, Sky Mother Aviana is a new Druid legendary that is, I believe, a 5-drop that shuffles...
6. It's 6-drop.
Okay, sorry, 6-drop. It just got coined or innovated out a lot. That shuffles 10 1-mana legendaries into your deck. So, this is Druid. The play pattern was very frequently use the spell damage location plus swipe other things to stabilize. Opponent has a slightly slower turn. They would, coin or innervate out Aviana, shuffle the legendaries in. Turn 6, Crystal Cluster, skip the mid game, jump immediately to 10 mana, and then they follow up with the ANR plus cover artist shenanigans that have sort of taken place of Shattered Reflections. So, ANR, refresh mana crystals, cover artist on ANR, draw to full hand, and now they've just drawn some 1-mana legendaries. So this is, I think, what kind of takes the spell damage deck from just a combo deck that sometimes you have to use all your stuff to clear and then you're out of gas to, hey, I can actually just pivot into killing you with 1-mana big things because that's often what legendaries are. And it was just really frighteningly effective. And I'm not looking forward to dealing with that. Something I realized as well is that because Swipe is back in Druid's Core and at 3 mana, and there's also the Gift, which can give them, yes, a 2-mana Wild Growth, but also possibly a 3-mana Swipe. There's a lot of instances of just spell damage plus Swipe that they can use for clears, such that they didn't even need some of the cards that I thought they would have to be using, like Nomelia or the Night Elf Huntress or these other things. They just use the damage spells and the new spell damage cards very frequently, swipe and then fill in the gaps to clear stuff. And if they couldn't build a hand to an OTK, then they just killed you with random legendaries. So that deck was a lot of the players that were, very high rank, because everyone starts at completely bottom of the barrel, the ones that were like really getting up there, they were playing Druid.
Okay. That's why we didn't see any of them, I guess.
Yes. I legit think that's why.
Saw some crazy Druid mirrors when I was watching the theory casting. And that's also, that style of deck is always very popular. So I am sure we will be seeing that going forward. I wanted to pick the two that you picked, but I decided that I would also pick Death Knight in general as represented by Zombie Tank. So Zombie Tank is, because we also did not talk about the Death Knight set, is a 2-mana 3/2 undead mech taunt battle cries. Spend 5 corpses to summon a copy of this. But it's not a 2-mana 3/2 summon a copy of this, like, ever. It's enormous. It's like 2-mana 7/6 or something.
Minimum.
Yeah, we had
Minimum.
2 mana set. We had 7/6s, 2 7/6s on turn 4 when we were playing this deck.
So the first time that we faced this, we were playing Warrior. We were like, this is going great. To be fair, our opponent's not doing anything. And then suddenly they play an enormous zombie tank, and they had like a gnome muncher that was enormous. That was the thing that really was the death knell for us. Hollow Hound. In general, the hand buff Death Knight, I'll certainly also be playing this, I'm sure, because it seems fun, but it does seem like it could be strong. We'll have to see how it pans out into the actual real non-theory crafting meta. But that, and also Blood Death Knight is dead, long live Blood Death Knight, with one unholy rune that Edelweiss keeps talking about.
Yeah.
As a noted non-enjoyer of Blood Death Knight, I am a little bit afraid of endless Soul Stealers coming my way.
It'll be fine.
And, who needs Mograine if you have a hero power that does 3 damage every turn, wherever you want it to? So, and also gives you an undead in your hand if you've played like the Seeker bird minion that draws it out of your deck for you.
They're just dead before you even get there. Like, that's not even relevant. They're just dead.
We don't even need, that's their backup plan in case I run into a mirror, right?
I did make a mistake of having the Zilliax that Death Rattle shuffles back in, and so Sharp-Eyed Seeker drew that instead.
Oh.
I didn't realize it would work that way. I figured, well, it's the same card. It started in my deck. No, it's considered a new card. So I will have to pick a different Zilliax if I want to do that.
But that does seem like it could be a little scary. And the new clear that Death Knight got was like basically just Defile, except for in some ways even more flexible.
Oh, where it gives all minions deal 1 damage to all minions?
Yes, Threads of Despair, 1 mana.
I didn't realize until I had it played against me that it was all minions and not just friendlies.
That's
that's
good.
gross. That's gross.
It's so much easier to make work than Defile, because I mean it becomes kind of 3 mana, but because of the Death Knight hero power, it gives you guaranteed that 1/1 that will have the Death Rattle, and then you can attack it into a 2/2. It's just,
well, you also don't have to do as much thinking to figure out how much damage it's going to do, right? It's just like, how many minions are on board, that's how much damage it's going to do eventually.
Unless one thing is substantially bigger than all of the other ones. But if you have a board, or you have your hero power, worst case scenario. So I was impressed by that. I was impressed by a card that Wicked's going to talk about in a little bit. In general, I think overall seems like a strong set. The Rainbow Seamstress, even if you don't have Frost, like if you're hand buffing it, that's fine. Or you could pretty easily have Frost. Like,
I mean, the Reborn doesn't even super matter because it doesn't have the Rush or the Lifesteal. It's just like a 3/1.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, whatever. Like, it's a body. It's an extra corpse. Like, fine. But
So We will have to see. I will definitely try out at least the hand buff. And if the blood decay is annoying me enough, then I'll play it as a know thy enemy situation. Which is how I've played.
You're gonna love it. You just know you're gonna love it. Like Baby Magasa's gonna come out, and your inner child is gonna enjoy that deck.
She might. We'll have a flip where you're playing Hunter and I'm playing Blood Death Knight.
No, that's not happening.
So last time, the card that Wicked Good was scared of was Shrimskavate.
It's scarier now.
It's even scarier
and
now.
They had to nerf a bunch of stuff because it was so scary. So I think that was justified.
Yeah, Leeroy's back.
Yep.
Leeroy sure is back. And
you could stack auras. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of cards that are even scarier now, Crystal Cluster was Edelweiss' pick.
Yep.
And mine was Shattered Reflections, which already got nerfed. So I think...
Twice. It got nerfed twice.
We'd rather hit it on the head last time.
Yeah.
All right, a card you want to be good but isn't. So I want to preface this. I do think that this card is good, but I don't think it's good in the way that people want it to be good. So the card that I want to be good but isn't is Raza as a combo card. So unless you have the Papercraft Angel, you're not really getting, or you are like 10 mana and you're a Reno Priest and you've played Reno, you have to kind of commit to a combo to get a lot out of Raza. And it's a lot of cards and it's not very fast and you have to draw things properly, and Priest doesn't have a lot of card draw. So all of these things combine to, or I should say, Priest has a lot of card draw if you happen to hit exactly Clergy early and it lives.
Yes. And Funnel Cake.
Then you have card draw forever and you draw your whole deck and you burn cards. But if you don't happen to draw Clergy early, as someone who played a lot of Overheal Priest, you don't always draw Clergy early, and that feels really bad if your deck requires a lot of draw. You don't have Cathedral anymore to back you up. If you're playing Dragons, you can use Scale Replica to fill in some of those gaps. That draws some of the cards for you, but if you're not playing Dragons and you're just trying to do like a Hedonist, Raza, Papercraft Angel sing-along buddy thing, then you don't have that so much. You could run Card Grader. It's all a little bit expensive. There are some things that can draw. You can run Thrive in the Shadows, I suppose. You can run Creation Protocol, but it's still a little bit slow. I think if you build like a slower combo Hedonist, but I think if you're building a fast Overheal, which I think could be quite good, you probably just don't even have the Raza combo, because we were already doing a lot of damage with Hedonist now.
Yeah.
And we have like pretty much none of those heal cards are rotating, and we get the 0 mana bandages. So I honestly think maybe we just go for, if we want a tempo Overheal deck, we kind of keep the shell we have now and we just add the crafters, and maybe you add the thing that, like, it just seemed like adding the 10 cards from Whizbang. Now, you wouldn't have to add 10, but adding all of those pieces are not very useful while you're drawing them, and it was just really hard to make work. It could be that someone smarter than me will figure out how to make it work, or it works and it's like this like really high skill cap deck. Or I know, Edel, you're about to give the idea that you have for how to make a combo work with Raza.
So I agree with you when it comes to using it to heal Hedonist, like with just the regular Priest Hero power. I think you're probably better served by just removing Papercrafter and Raza from the pool of minions so that your creation is more likely to hit the cleric.
Plus, it damages itself 4, so the first 2 hero powers don't even do anything unless you happen to have Funnel Cake in your hand. Right. So then you have to have like Pip and things to get more Funnel Cakes, and then that's even more card slots.
I mean, you are running Pip anyway, but you could run. Then, like, if you're I saw Edel's face, and the look of disgust on your face was accurate, because if you're having to run Justicar in that deck to make it work, things have gone horribly wrong. So I'm just saying that's a thing you could do, but not a thing you should do.
I think the equation completely changes if we get a card like Akanai Soul Priest, or I forget the name of the old 2-mana spell that just says your healing effects
Embrace the Shadow.
Do damage this turn. Yeah. If something like that comes out, totally flips things on its head, right? Then you've got 0 mana bandages that refresh your hero power. You've got, like, you just go nuts. Play Justicar, sure. But I am going to be messing around with, I think there's a couple routes you can go. One is just like, you throw Raza into a Reno deck, and sometimes you kill people with Papercraft Angel and Sing-Along Buddy and just stuff. Or you roll the Arcane Bullet and you're refreshing. And it's just like another mode of lethality. You do still have enough dragons for Zarimi, and so you're still just kind of controlling priesty stuff. One of the things that the Shadow Reaper Anduin hero power was good for sometimes was just, I need to clear minions. I have a refreshing hero power that I will use to clear minions. So could end up in that situation. But we're working on a build because I realized Character Artist gives us a way of just drawing Raza. Like having in a Highlander deck a minion that you can play that draws the Raza, much like how sometimes people will run the draw a beast thing in Paladin with the Spirit of the Badlands as their only beast, right? So they can get the Mirage more frequently. It's like, yes, it's a dead card if you've already drawn it, but it's so important to get that one card. So if you can just make it so like, okay, Raza, you hit very frequently, and as long as you get Reno, you're good. And I think because of how powerful a clear Reno is when it's active, I think you can end up in the situation where it's just like, okay, we got Reno, now I'm safe because I poof everything. And then you can focus on just killing them. So I built a version that it doesn't have Zarimi because it doesn't have any dragons, and it doesn't have any minions that cost 5 or more besides Raza. So it's just Caricature Artist for Raza, and you've got all these draw things. And it's got some old school stuff. Wild Pyromancer, which will be good against the hunters.
Oh no.
And like you've got the 0 mana bandages to potentially fuel it. You've got the
A Wild Pyromancer. Yeah, there is an idea.
Wild Pyro, Acolyte of Pain.
Exactly.
Holy crap.
Just throwing it back. I didn't put in Thalnos, but I thought about it. And the only thing that really would benefit is like Holy Smite and Holy Nova. So that wasn't good enough. If we had something like the 2 mana deal 1 to everything lifesteal, it would be in there. But
Harmonic Pop, I guess.
It's pricey.
That's 8
though.
It's
mana.
expensive.
Yeah, so I don't know if this will still function, sort of the draw tools of old for a modern Raza priest, but I do know that if you do get online Papercraft Angel and Sing-Along Buddy and certain hero powers from Reno, like it's just an absurd amount of damage because each hero power is going to be 4 damage because of Sing-Along Buddy, and some other bonus effect, whether it's armor or obviously the refresh 2 mana crystals. If you can't kill the opponent, it's your fault because you're printing mana at that point. You can very much get a board clear if you're refreshing hero powers with the one that deals 1 damage to all minions. In addition, like there's just so many things. You can get more fuel with the Discover a Spell one. The worst one is probably draw cards because you already were trying to draw cards. So you don't really want to refresh a hero power that draws more cards and couldn't kill them on that turn. But I just think that there's going to be a lot of possibilities, and maybe Priest doesn't have good enough draw for it to be functional in that way right now, but it just feels like it's waiting.
Yeah. I mean, there could be something, right? Like, because right now the experience of playing it was very on brand flavorized, because it felt like I got a toy that I was very excited to play with, except somebody had already played with it, broken off a piece, shoved it back in the box, and put it back on the shelf. I made the mistake of playing Big Priest and Twist this week because I had not realized that Shadow S. I knew Barnes had been nerfed to 5 because I had to recraft it, which was a big mistake. But I didn't realize until I played the first game, I forgot that Shadow Essence had been nerfed to 7, which is a lot more than 6. It sounds like it's only 1, but it's actually 1 million more than 6. But you do run Shadow Reaper Anduin in the original like Knights of the Frozen Throne version of that deck, and like that hero power refreshing really does not matter when it costs 2. because 2 is a lot of mana. So it's like,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing needs Papercraft Angel to work, and you need to have ways that you can make up for the fact that you paid 3 for Papercraft Angel when your hero power would have cost 2 otherwise. And that's not easy to do. And like the things that you have to do to make that happen, it's just like, we got it down, and it's like, well, okay. Like, great. We didn't have Reno active. So it's like, okay, well, now we're just healing things for 2 repeatedly. And like, oh, yeah, we got Sing Along Buddy, so we can heal our Adonis twice because we had to spend mana on cards to get that to go off. And like, you have to play like the Careless Crafter to get the bandages because those cost 0, but then you have to hold on to those. You usually need those to not die while you're trying to play all of these expensive cards and drawing things like Sing Along Buddy and Papercraft Angel, which are basically dead weight while you're waiting to find your Raza. And like, there's probably a way to make this happen, but the ways that I was trying to build it did not work particularly well. Like, we won despite Raza, not because of it, right? So, and like, there's a million things that could happen to flip that immediately. But right now with what we have, I'm not sure how we do that.
If you want to win with Adonis and Funnel Cake, and you can already do that. We do have Catharsis in chat pointing out there is that weapon that makes your hero power cost 0. I think it's only 2 durability.
It's only twice.
So,
which might be crucial at a certain moment before you can get things completely rolling. But I think it's sort of like you need enough cheap stuff in the deck to be able to make use of it until they're in range and you can Papercraft Angel Sing Along Buddy. That's kind of the way I think about it. That's why the cards that give you the 1 mana potions are so nice. And
yeah, and you can run Miracle Salesman and
right, yeah, the bandages. So yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be like that or if it'll be a Turbo Draw Clergy deck that then just plays Reno at the end. Like, that's also a possibility. But I just feel like we've seen how the effect can be powerful. It definitely is different when you don't have a permanent effect giving you the 0 cost hero power. That is a big difference. But
yeah,
I also think that you can get enough damage to kill them with.
You probably can, but it's like how you build the deck is going to be difficult because like the more things that you have to put in to make the combo work, like the less things that you have to not die before you draw the combo.
And the fewer heals you have, and you have to use the heals in order to not die with your injured hauler. You have to use the heals on your clergy, so then you need things that duplicate heals or give you more heals. This is part of why I think Wand Maker is great in any version of this deck. But like, and we probably do play Pip now at this point, but like, yeah, it starts getting awkward. I'm not necessarily going to say never on this, but Raza by itself doesn't really make much difference. And then the full combo, at least if it's awkward in theory crafting, that doesn't give me a ton of confidence. Now, the direction that you pointed out, Edel, I think is potentially promising. I will definitely be trying it out as soon as you share that list, and it's the 19th. But
I will add as well, though, that like slower Reno decks that just had Raza still won. Like, even if they didn't do it in the spectacular sort of Raza Shadow Raper Anduin Priest kind of way that we remember, it still seemed like a good deck.
Yeah, if you're on 10 mana,
you might just not have to try that hard, right? Like, if you go away from like trying to do an OTK and just say, hey, I'm going to get some more Reno hero powers, then maybe that's fine. But just like the more kinds of things that you have to put in, it's just like, well, how are we getting there? Like, if like, because now we're chat's talking about like, well, what if you run air guitars to give the weapon more durability? And it's like, well, okay, so now I need to have both of those cards together and then not play them until I've got Raza and Reno. And then, it's just like, at a certain point, you just run out of card slots, especially because we're not running Renathal. Not that you'd want to do that in a kind of deck like this anyway. And then, like when you have all those cards that are dead air, you die before you get to do the cool thing. And again, like Megase was saying, we were trying to do the cool thing in theory crafting, which is the time and the place to do the cool thing. Everybody's trying to do the cool thing. We did not get to do the cool thing. So yeah, take that as you will.
I think that the way or the reason that the old Raza Priest worked was partially because you just had a bunch of cheap stuff and you would cobble it together in all these puzzling ways to draw cards to find what you needed, and then you just did that same stuff when you were going to kill them.
And you also had Velen, right? Which also Velen made all the shots do 4, right?
Velen Mind Blast. Well, and in this case, we've got Sing-Along Buddy makes the shots do 4, and Sing-Along Buddy is 2 mana, not 7 mana. So
right, yeah.
But you need the Papercraft Angel to make the hero power 0, so that's 5.
It's 5 mana and 2 cards, right?
But I think if you just think of it in the same way as the other Raza Priest, like you are just doing everything you can to cobble together a card draw and kill their stuff, and like it's just this, puzzle it out, and then you hit a point where it's like, okay, I'm online, now I start counting. Are they in range? Not quite. Well, then we're going to clear and fit in a couple pings here to whittle them down, and it just ends up in the situation where it's like, and now they're in range, they're dead. So whether that's going to be, something like what I just brewed up that's with character artists that's very focused on getting online faster, or if it's just something that is added to a more value dragon-oriented Raza Priest that sometimes just wins with Zarimi, or, Elise makes a big board and they can't clear it, whatever. I don't know. But I feel like we're definitely going to be seeing it. And particularly when, Meaty couldn't put that deck down. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, Meaty's also, he's a control priest enthusiast also. So,
Then, of course, we have the card that I want to be good, but isn't, and that's Magtheridon. And I don't know, Demon Hunter, I feel like has it rough right now. They're in a tough spot. They got some cool thematic cards, and I love Magtheridon as a card. It's very cool. But building a deck to do basically everything you can to make your own minion dormant is very weird. And the existence of Reno means that if they get rid of it, you have to start over and discover one. So the deck is kind of centered around discovering additional Magtheridons and trying to use, Crimson Expanse to make a copy and Red Card to make them go dormant. And because of card requirements, I didn't have cover artists, but that's another thing you could do. It's very weird that you kind of don't ever want your 12/12 to actually be in play because it likely won't connect. And you're just focused on having these dormant Magtheridons to clear the opposing board so that you don't die, and to basically be your build your own Mograine.
I mean, the thought that I had, we only got to play one game of it and we got scammed by a card I'll talk about in a sec. But I don't know if scam's the right word, but we were not seeing it coming. I'll say that.
I'll say scammed. We were scammed.
We were scammed. So, but my thought had been, what if we have Magtheridon as something that we can potentially copy and that does damage and that keeps our board clear, but we also have Illidari Inquisitor to actually kill them.
Yeah, I mean, that was in there. In the deck I built, I had the big demons were basically Magtheridon. The new one that you discover a demon and you give it stats and cost equal to this one's, and then you also get a miniaturized version. So you don't care if you get a 1/1 Magtheridon because you're just making it dormant anyway. Yeah, it was okay, but I couldn't tell if it needed work or if it's just you have to try way too hard.
Could definitely be. But yeah, I was thinking it might be more of an Illidari Inquisitor deck that also has Magtheridon than a Magtheridon deck that also has Illidari Inquisitor.
I mean, the thing is, we lost the really powerful big demon card, which was the Resurrect tool. So
yeah, that is true.
I'll be a little, as well as the recruit in the Naga.
Yeah.
So right now it's just the weapon, and the weapon is very good. The umpire gloves or whatever they are.
Umpire's grasp.
Yeah, it's very good. It might be better for small demons than big demons. We'll see. Just because if you get a 2-mana demon that's free and you just play it, but yeah, it's like discounting, 6 costs to 4 or 8 costs to 6 on a weapon is really nice. And then we still have the Fell Screamer. I forget what it is.
We still have Fell Screamer. We have Argus, although you have to play Argus first, which is 7.
Right.
Yeah.
We have
Argus
Restless
did not go
Stage to tutor Inquisitors. You have Wayward Sage going to core, but and it is likely to be in the side, but then you have to outcast the Wayward Sage itself.
Yeah.
So
not having access to the recruit a big beast from your deck or the resurrect not beast, sorry. Recruit a big demon from your deck or resurrect big demon just makes it feel like incomplete. And so I wonder if they may have some of that coming in the future, but at the same time, we just lost those. So it would be a little weird to like keep focusing on the big demon package when they've been doing that stuff for a little while. And I don't know, maybe there's from core cards going to be some kind of aggro demon hunter, but it's a little hard to know what to build with the class right now.
I'll definitely agree. It's hard to know what to build with the class right now. I know there was some draw demon hunter speculation, but we didn't find anything to put into the theory crafting. And so, yeah, we'll have to see. I do hope that some version of Magtheridon is good because it's a cool card, but we will have to see. Wicked, what was the card that you want to be good but isn't?
So, remember how I said that Botface could be really good once we see all the minis? It's not. It's really not. We were trying it in a Taunt Warrior. We'd actually buffed it up and then Chemical spilled it out. And it turns out, there are a lot of minis that are not good when you're not playing them in your class. So there's Amateur Puppeteer. Death Rattle, give undead in your hand +2/+2. Fantastic when you're a warrior. You've got 1. The 2/2 that buffs your taunts. That's fantastic. There's Window Shopper. Discover a demon. Said its stats and cost equal to this one's. So you get a 1/1 Observer of Mysteries. Fantastic. That's the only demon that you can get as a warrior.
Wait, one amalgam band. Right?
One amalgam band.
Yeah, like, so you could get a 1 amalgam band, which fantastic. Like, I'm very excited about that. Or you can get an Observer of Mysteries. That's it. That's what you get. You can choose which one you want. It's a Discover. You can have whichever one of those you want, as long as it's one of those 2, because that's all you get.
You can have a 1/1 Abyssal Bassist. A 1/1 Taunt Lifesteal. It'll probably cost 0.
That is true. That is the warrior demon there.
Sure. I don't know. That's not even showing up on the card library, so maybe that's why I'm getting confused. But it's like, it's still like, okay, whatever. Like Sandart Elemental, unless you happen to have a big weapon, or ways to gain attack, which, I mean, you have weapons in Warrior, but not great ones. Like, okay, I have Wind Fury, I get to do 2 damage with my face. Hooray. Like, like you want to hit like the Clay Matriarchs, you want to hit the Tarums, you want to hit like even like Sleet Skaters, not bad. We did get a 1/1 Mystery Egg to draw a Blast Tortoise in that deck, which worked out okay.
But normally that's a whiff.
Yeah, that's not what you're looking to do, right? Like you want Shutter Blocks, you want Sandbox Scoundrels, you want Clay Matriarchs, and you get those sometimes, and sometimes you just get junk, and then you burn cards for the privilege of getting all that junk in your hand, and it's not it. It's just not it. maybe if we get better, some more broken minis in the mini set, then maybe it'll get a little bit better. But it is not worth the effort of having to cheat it out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair enough. Well, last time, the card that I wanted to be good but isn't, I just put elemental decks in general. Eloise put Crimson Expanse, and Wicked put Elemental Companion. I think we can agree that those were
none of those have seen any play, so I think we did it.
It's a minion that you want to be dormant, and Crimson Expanse still isn't that great.
All right, so we'll try to speed a little bit for our last two categories here, but we definitely still want to talk about these cards. So, Wicked, what is a card that you think we all did underrated? What is a card that you think is underrated?
So Darkthorn Quilter is a card that completely passed me by in the reveals when Death Knight was revealed, and we didn't get to talk about it on the show because it was revealed after the last time we recorded. It's a 4-mana 2/4 undead Quillbore. At the end of your turn, deal this minion's attack damage randomly split among enemies. This gets hand buffed and this goes face. And if you get to stick this, your opponent does not get to stick a board ever if they can't clear it. So have fun with that. This card was a lot better than I thought it was. Like, people were saying in chat, like, "Oh, you should be keeping Darkthorn Quilter in your hand." I'm like, "What? Why?" And then I saw it played once. I'm like, "Oh, I get why." Okay.
Because it's that Demon Hunter card, you know, the 6-mana 6/7 that did 6 damage randomly split among enemies. Yeah, it's that for 4.
Yes, except it's good.
I mean, that card was good when a bunch of Demon Hunter stuff got nerfed, right? And we just had ways of dealing face damage. There was a period that card got nerfed from 7 health to 5 health. But yeah, it's terrifying.
But this does it every turn. It's not just like once when it wakes up, it's every turn.
I had to double check that Drakari Enchanter isn't in core. That's the double end of turn effects. That would have been fun. But you can do the fun trick of, you know, the thing where you give your undead poisonous.
Oh yeah, that's what really makes it sick. Because if you play, what is it, Grime? Oh, I forget what it is. The one that gives every undead that you summon poisonous. This is what was the combo from Mech Hunter? It was like Venomizer and missile launcher.
Yeah.
Where it would just it would blow up and kill the entire board. This just kills everything on the board.
And then the rest goes face.
Yes, and the rest goes face. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Very, very good for the mirror, right?
Yes. Until they do it back to you.
Well, or Reska and steal it. Yeah.
As long as you're going second in the mirror, then it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that one probably a little stronger pick than mine here. I felt like I had to do this because they're very cool. And there used to be this priest legendary called, oh gosh, it was a troll.
Vol'jin,
yes. That was a 6/2 and swapped its health with an enemy minion. And there's since been like a core priest legendary that's an 8/1 and
Twilight Acolyte was the kobold that would do that too, that would switch attack.
Right. So the origami cards, you've got the beast one is a frog that is a 1/4 rush that swaps attack with the thing it targets. So if you do like a giant, it gets 8 attack, rushes in, kills the giant, and now you've got an 8 attack minion still because the giant had 1 attack. And then the dragon is 6 cost, divine shield, lifesteal, I believe.
Yep.
It's 1/1, but it swaps both its stats. So you just set an enemy minion to 1/1 and have a big divine shield lifesteal. I thought this was funny to include in Highlander Priest for more dragons, because if you get it off Elise, it's a 5/5 divine shield lifesteal. So that's nice. And then I believe the last one is Crane, which swaps health. It's a 4/1 taunt that swaps health with its target. So again, letting you kill that thing potentially and have a big taunt. So maybe these are cards that are just good arena cards, very good arena cards,
Yes.
but they just feel like they're on that line where it's like, well, if big minions are ever in, such as, hand buff decks,
Or Sludge Lock, for that matter.
yeah, they might kind of find a place. Just particularly, the Rush Frog, because it immediately answers the thing and gives you a high attack minion left over. The taunt one, you need to do a little bit more work because you need to have like a ping hero power or something in play to finish off what you swapped off with. But they just they neuter an enemy minion. It's a huge tempo swing because you then get the big minion, and all of them you can get them back from Geppetto. Now, whether that part is ever relevant, because maybe that's too much, but I just find that very fun that Geppetto has all these flexible ways of just like, oh yeah, you can get these back. Because all of the origami minions have one or both of their stats are one, you can get them back from Geppetto. So this might be a little bit of a hopeful, I hope this is underrated just because they're very cool cards. I believe Leo is a big fan of origami. I think it was him who said this. And so
Yeah, he did a thread on Twitter about it, yeah.
Yeah, so, definitely check out Mindy Fresh's Twitter if you want to see about that. But yeah, they're so cool, and it's weird to have, what we sometimes think of as like filler cards that just have this really high potential.
And the art is so beautiful on them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very pretty. It's not adorable, but it's pretty.
And hand luck may be a thing, which is another reason that, right, there's so many ways going into Warlock for them to make a big minion and then get a copy with the location that these things might be relevant for kind of staving some of that off.
Absolutely. I definitely, when those cards were first revealed, I thought, it's meta dependent, but they could be really strong. The card that I picked as underrated is Warsong Grunt. I do not think this goes in every deck. It only kind of counts because it's actually a new core card. It's not actually in Whizbang's workshop, but it's a new card for right now, so I got Wicked to allow it.
Also because we stole all your picks, so yeah.
Also that. So Warsong Grunt is the Rumble core card, 5 mana, 3/6 rush. After this attacks and kills a minion, it may attack again. So in Paladin, if you have a Crusader Aura active, or 2 of them, but that's a little ambitious, you just need 1. And they're a hunter or something, or they're us trying to play big DH and having Argus out with a lot of
That's
tutus.
right, this is when we got murdered by this.
This is when we got murdered by Kibler.
Bunch 2/2s. Yep.
And it gets back. It just can do this forever. And then in this case, we'd actually left it up because we didn't quite realize that Crusader Aura was a card that he might play. We couldn't really kill it, so we left it up. So it cleared everything and then went face for 19. Now, you're not necessarily always doing that, but in a meta where maybe we're having a lot of hunters, Paladin can have Crusader Aura, but also any buff that you put on this in general. It can clear a taunt and then go face, or just clear a board. Even if it's not buffed, it could clear a bunch of small minions, potentially, or clear 2-3 health minions, probably fine. It's not unplayable in non-hunter matchups, potentially. So I don't think this goes in every deck, but I do think it has potential, especially maybe in Paladin, or anything that can buff it or protect it in some way. So maybe I'm just biased because Kibler totally blew us out, and then that was my chance to try this.
We didn't know what was coming when we left that up. It was like a horror movie.
We thought, well, Guardian's Grace isn't, in Paladin, and it's not like a mech or something. What could possibly go wrong by leaving a minion up facing Paladin? We can just put some taunts in the way, and that'll clearly be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, last time, the card that you picked, Wicked, was Stone Drake is underrated.
Yeah. I probably missed on that, but we've got time. Maybe to force that meta.
We've got Dragon still. Edelweiss, you picked Quartzite Crusher is underrated. I would say you hit on that one. And I picked Trog Gem Tosser as overrated, which it depends on. I don't think I hit on that one. I kind of knew like immediately after we recorded that I had not hit on that one. Finally, we have card you don't understand. So I picked Wind Up Musician, which I believe we talked about because it was one of the cards that was revealed in the announcement. It's a 6 mana. Why does it cost 6 mana? That's the first thing I don't understand. 6 mana, 5/5, tradable, battle cry, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions, trade to upgrade. I don't understand why we're paying 6 mana for this when we had to trade it so many times, which also costs 1 mana every time.
By the time you have traded enough times for it to be relevant, it doesn't matter. You've got 6 mana anyway. You've got 10 mana because you have to trade it so many times for it to do anything.
It has to be like really late in the game so that you keep redrawing it and trading it. And meantime, you're not dying because you have other things to do. And you are not dying with extra mana to fit into your turns to trade this thing. There's just so many other board control and clear tools that I just don't know that we're ever this desperate.
I mean, to some extent, I feel like you could have put Wind Up here in general. Like, it's very cool thematically, but I think we'll be hard pressed to find a good Wind Up card.
Yeah, even like in Hand Buff Paladin, we were looking at the Wind Up Enforcer, and it was like, yes, this is good if you buff it, and then it summons copies. But like, do we really wind this up?
You need a turbo draw deck to really take advantage of it, right? Because, like, again, we talked about this when they first got revealed. Like, I've played a lot of Amulet of Undying, and if you weren't trading if you didn't get down to 2 cards, and one of them at the bottom was an Amulet of Undying and just got to keep trading them against each other, then you were never getting enough value out of Amulet of Undying, and you had to draw through your whole deck, which in a Control Priest, when you're expecting the game to go for 45 minutes, that works. If you are a control deck, you have better ways to clear a board than this that do not take nearly as much effort. I mean, just Carpal Tunnel alone to activate this enough time, right?
There was one instance where I was like, okay, that's cool and might work, and that is Highlander Paladin with the Mirage. Because it's something that you can keep putting back in your deck so that you have like a decent target to hit with the Mirage.
But don't you turn off Reno if you do that?
No, you don't trade the Mirage.
Oh, what are you doing?
I'm saying you trade the wind up thing. It upgrades. If the Mirage sees it, it will see the upgraded version. So you play the Mirage, and right. So it's just a way of always having a minion in your deck that it's getting better every time you trade it, and it's better than some of the other hits to make sure you.
But couldn't you just play a card that was better than this to start with?
Sometimes you do have a problem in Highlander. That actually kind of makes sense because sometimes in Highlander Paladin you do have a problem when you run low on minions with Mirage.
Where you keep hitting your Rustrot Viper, right? And you're like, I don't really want this. So I forget if it was Language Hacker or No Hands who was doing this with the Highlander Paladin, but it was actually pretty interesting because so you were shuffling in the wind-up card as a target, and then there was also the Death Rattle shuffle into your deck with Zilliax. And so if you could hit Zilliax with the Mirage, then, I mean, at this point, you've played Reno, you've played the Mirage, so you don't need Highlander stuff active anymore. Then you can just keep playing Mirages of the Zilliax, and you never fatigue, and you can always play a Zilliax. And then the wind-up thing would just be one more thing in there that you could hit as like a board in a box. But that's the only decent idea I've seen to do with wind-up.
Yeah. So we understand one of them, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't think we do, but okay.
So, Adel, what did you pick as a card that you do not understand? Or in your class, a card and kind of the whole class?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about the mage stuff in general. It seems weird that it looked like you're actively making your box worse by doing the thing it wants you to do of being all spells, because then you're more likely to hit Wheel of Death. And like the pool of big spells just wasn't that impressive. It almost seemed better if you get lower cost spells too. But putting all that aside, Puzzle Master Khadgar, I saw it a few times and it never did what I expected. So like in just like a strictly like, yeah, I don't get it. I thought it was supposed to like there will be 2 good options and 1 sort of wild card, and it'll pick from them. It would just like Fireball face or Frostbolt face, and I'm like, I guess that's helpful, but I don't know, you could have done Blizzard or Flame Strike or Ice Barrier here, and any of those would have been more helpful. So I don't know if Celestalon needs to do a little tweaking or something with the Khadgar, make it a little smarter, but just having it be a thing of like, yeah, technically it's helpful to throw burn at the enemy face. Just like it I'm a lot lower on this card than I was before. And
it sounds like it's helpful in the way that like a 3-year-old is helping to like clean the house.
Uh-huh.
Look, mommy, I helped. Yeah, okay, now I have a bigger mess to clean up.
I was quoted by someone who's like, well, just always going face is the answer. This is Hearthstone.
Sottle made a joke on broadcast that it actually doesn't have an algorithm or anything. It just only plays Fireball face.
So, I mean, Hat maybe got into it, and maybe he just, they let him touch the code, and he just made it always go face.
So you if you know that, then you can build your deck around always going face, and it's fine.
Yeah, it's true.
But if
just
it
put spell damage minions in.
If it knows that you know that it's always going to go face, then it'll start ice barriering.
Right. That's where it plays the Blizzard. Yeah.
It's like the evil DM, right? Like that's what it's doing.
Yeah.
Yes. Now that you have gotten a magic missile wand, I'm going to have all enemies have shield for the rest of the game. All right, and to wrap us up, Wicked, what was the card that you don't understand?
So the one I don't understand is Chalk Artist, which is a 4-mana 4/3, battle cry, draw a minion, transform it into a random legendary one, keeping its original stats and cost. Why am I doing this?
What?
Like, why? What am I trying to do? Like, I mean, maybe if we're target farming a particular cost, then there's some sort of a thing that we want to do, but like, I like the minions in my deck. That's why I put them there. Why am I drawing a minion and turning it into a random legendary once? Like Aviana is 10 minions that all cost 1. This is annihilating a minion that I put in my deck on purpose to replace it with a random legendary, which, as we know, are always good. And doing that this is basically like Servant of Yogg-Saron versus Yogg-Saron, right?
It is a one-time like Prestor kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Except Prestor was good because it would roll 1,000,000 times and it would regress to the mean.
Well,
and
yes.
When you roll once, then sometimes you critical miss, which in my case will be always. Because as we've firmly established, every time I played Chaos Creation before it was nerfed, I summoned Bran.
I understand this card completely. Did you see all of the rest of the priest cards? Now you understand why this card exists.
Okay, fair.
This is the best priest set minus this card. So they had to let it go somewhere.
Listen, why do we get a 99? Why couldn't we get 100? What happened to the other point?
Well, we haven't quite hit the perfect 10 routine yet. But so cards we didn't understand last time, I had picked Fell Fissure. Edelweiss picked the Azurite Murloc, the Excavate reward for Shaman. And Wicked, you picked Mismatched Fossils. And I think those were all solid picks.
I mean the Azurite Murloc is the only Excavate treasure that nobody's even trying to play.
That's not true. Eve is playing it. Or Master Eve.
Okay.
I don't know. She's having fun with Evolved Shaman. I have no idea how to build that deck. I tried.
We stayed
Maybe
after.
Maybe it needs more Chalk Artists.
Wrong class, but
I mean, not if you evolve into it.
Well, that's going to do it for our show. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. And write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede, as well as like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. And if you would like some CC swag, head on up to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Fresh, Beef Squatch, David P., Walu, Jeremy T., Bottle Caps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Forgiven One, Grizzly Bear, The Grand Arcanum, and Tyler Knife. Newest patron. Yes. Sorry, I gotta get this name down. Shout out as well to Hanzolo AU for the sub during the show. And coin concedes, I'll start. I'm going to coin concede to Ahirun. It was a big deal for me the first time I got the Ahirun retweet. And, it's just done so much for the community in terms of like bringing people up who are tech builders and up and coming, and just as a resource. Honestly, like everyone else goes to VS, or a lot of people go to VS. I always went to Ahirun. It was like my go-to is just check Ahirun Twitter, what cool decks are going on. I honestly, I would have forgone any of like the news retweets just for the decks, right? All I wanted was the decks. If I could keep Ahirun doing the decks and not doing the news retweets so that it would fix his schedule, I would love that. But all good things must come to an end. But it's sad. Yeah. End of an era.
It's an end of an era, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Well, I'm just going to coin concede to Blizzard for once again including us in the Theorycrafting, and it's so much fun, and it's something that it's something that I recognize that we're really privileged to get to do, and it's an honor every time we get to do it. And I don't take it for granted when we do get to do it, but it's a really fun thing that we get to do. It helps us talk about these things on the show a little bit more, in a more informed way by actually having some hands-on experiences with the cards that we can pass along to you. So it's a big thing for us to be able to do that, to be able to make this episode in particular as good as it can be, and recognize that there's limited opportunities for this, and that not everyone gets to do this, and it's special every single time. It's a very long, it's the longest stream that I do every 4 months by far. It's like, because normally I stream for 3 hours, and I am probably getting too old to do that. But it's also fun to be able to hang out with the two of you for 6 hours and just jam cards and have fun, and and people seem to enjoy when we do that. So, and thanks to everybody who came out to watch too, because obviously it means a lot to have an audience watching us just having fun. So, and we do it if nobody is watching, but it's more fun when people are watching and hanging out. So thanks to everybody who made an effort to come by as well.
And I would echo all of those, as well as a coin concede to our top 8 for the listener series: Book, Wild 9, Pilot, Glacier, Dr. Bombed, World 8, Scoob D, and Proby 1. And a shout out to, I believe it was Tex, who almost made it and was disqualified on like the second level of tiebreakers. So congrats on that. They're playing like a super lightning top 8 to try to get it in before Tuesday. So good luck to everyone there. And also coin concede to our patrons on the raw audio, who get to hear me completely flip 2 cards in my head that I picked to talk about. So that's the kind of thing that you get in the raw audio, is the true unmasking of at least Megasa the host. So this is always an extremely fun episode to do, and to have a chance to do the Theorycrafting and to have so many people supporting us doing that is all a huge privilege that we all really appreciate.
Yes, absolutely. But that's going to do it. And next time we hear you, it will be the year of the Pegasus. So keep calm, and may you never hit the pity timer. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose death.